Have you ever felt like you're walking alone while everyone else seems to have someone beside them? Like you're climbing a mountain and the silence around you is louder than the storm? That silence, it tests you, it shapes you, and it reveals a truth that most people will never understand. Some people are not alone because they are unworthy of friends. They are alone because they've reached a stage where they no longer tolerate half-hearted connections. They've walked through betrayal, fake smiles, and empty conversations, and in that silence, they've found something deeper: themselves. There is something about being alone, and you have to be humble and honest with you. There's a powerful truth hidden in solitude. Being alone doesn't mean being broken. It often means you've outgrown what no longer fits your spirit. People who have no friends are not always lonely souls wandering without purpose. Many of them are individuals who have evolved beyond shallow connections, beyond meaningless noise, beyond the kind of friendships that drain rather than fill. They have walked through the fire of disappointment, betrayal, and disillusionment and come out the other side quieter but stronger. The absence of people in their lives is not a void, it's space. Space for clarity, peace, and purpose. When you start seeing life differently, when you stop laughing at empty jokes or pretending to be someone you're not, you begin to lose people. It's not because you've changed for the worse, it's because you've started to value your energy. You stop chasing validation, you stop begging to be understood, and that's when the distance begins. You no longer crave constant company because you've realized that not every person deserves access to your world. Some are drawn to your light only to dim it. Others speak of loyalty but vanish the moment life gets real, so you walk away, slowly, silently, but with strength. In that silence, something beautiful happens. You meet yourself. You begin to understand your own patterns, your own fears, your own worth. The noise of others once distracted you, their opinions once shaped you, but now it's just you and your thoughts. At first it's uncomfortable. The quiet feels too loud, the world feels too distant. But as time passes, you start hearing a different kind of voice. The voice inside you, the one that doesn't judge, doesn't compare, doesn't lie. That's the voice of truth, and it only speaks when the world's noise fades away. Many people never reach this stage because they fear it. They cling to anyone just to avoid being alone. They fill their time with conversations that mean nothing, with company that leaves them emptier than before. But those who have no friends and choose to remain that way for a while, they discover an inner strength that others rarely know. They become self-reliant, emotionally independent, and spiritually centered. They stop needing people to remind them of their worth because they've already faced the version of themselves that no one applauds and survived. In a world obsessed with connection, solitude becomes rebellion. It's choosing self-respect over attention, silence over gossip, truth over popularity. People who are alone understand this deeply. They see through the illusions, the fake laughter, the surface-level bonds, the social masks everyone wears to avoid the truth that most friendships today are built on convenience, not connection. When you have no friends, you see this clearly. You start noticing how people talk but rarely listen, how they promise but rarely act, how they surround themselves with noise just to hide from their own emptiness. The strength of a person is not tested by how many stand beside them, but by how they stand when no one does. And that's where these people shine. They don't crumble in isolation, they rise. They build dreams in silence, heal wounds without applause, and walk past no one dares to follow. Their solitude becomes their teacher. It teaches patience, resilience, emotional balance, and the art of letting go. The world might see them as friendless, but what the world doesn't see is the fortress being built inside them, a fortress made of peace, boundaries, and unshakable purpose. So when someone chooses solitude, don't mistake it for sadness. Often, it's the calm before greatness. It's the silence that shapes warriors of the mind, because those who can stand alone are the ones who can stand against anything. Loneliness is often seen as something to escape, but for people who truly understand themselves, it becomes a silent teacher. When the noise fades, when the constant distractions disappear, when no one is calling or texting, you're left with only one thing, your own mind. And that's where the transformation begins. People who have no friends often spend long hours in their own company, and while the world might label them as lonely, what's really happening is much deeper. They are being purified by solitude. The mind, when stripped of validation and outside noise, begins to detox. The anxiety that comes from comparison fades, the pressure to perform dissolves, and slowly they start seeing who they really are. In the absence of friends, the mind learns to confront its demons head on. There's no one to distract you from your pain, no one to fill the silence. You're forced to look inward, to question your own patterns, to face your weaknesses. That's not easy. Most people run from this process all their lives, but those who endure it come out stronger. They learn how to control their thoughts instead of being controlled by them. They begin to understand that peace is not found in people, it's created within. Every silent night becomes a small act of healing. Every quiet morning becomes a chance to start over. When you're alone long enough, you start building a relationship with your inner world. You stop fearing it. You start to realize that solitude is not a cage. It's a mirror. It reflects your deepest truths back at you. It shows you what truly matters, what needs to change, and what you've been avoiding. People who spend time in isolation develop a deep emotional clarity. They can identify their triggers, understand their pain, and rebuild their strength without needing constant reassurance from others. They become more self-aware, and self-awareness is the foundation of real power. This emotional clarity becomes their compass. It helps them navigate the world with calm confidence. Where most people react emotionally to criticism or rejection, those who face solitude have already faced worse, their own self-doubt, so nothing outside can shake them easily. They have already built endurance through emotional storms. Their calmness isn't weakness, it's proof that they fought inner battles and won. They've cried in silence, healed in silence, and risen in silence. That's why they don't need crowds to feel seen. They've already been witnessed by their own soul. Solitude also sharpens the mind. When you're not constantly socializing, you observe. You notice patterns in people's behavior, the small lies hidden in words, the unspoken truths in their actions. You begin to read people better because you've learned to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. That's emotional intelligence born from isolation. The mind becomes more alert, the heart becomes more disciplined, and the soul becomes more grounded. While others are distracted by endless noise, you begin to see life with precision. People who go through this stage don't crave crowds anymore, they crave depth. They no longer want to be surrounded, they want to be understood. And if that understanding never comes, they're at peace with it. Because solitude has already given them something far more valuable than attention. It has given them control over their inner world. What others see as loneliness is often the process of becoming whole. The mind learns to stand still, the heart learns to heal, and the soul learns to breathe freely. That's why those who truly embrace their solitude often emerge unbreakable. They are not dependent on the world to feel alive. They carry their peace within. The same silence that once felt heavy now becomes their strength. Because once you've learned to survive the wilderness of your own mind, no loneliness in the world can ever defeat you again. People who have no friends often evolve into powerful observers of the world around them. While most people crave constant social interaction, these individuals step back and watch. They learn quietly and patiently. When you live without a circle, you develop an awareness that others rarely possess. An ability to see through the layers of behavior that most people hide behind. It's not because they're cynical, it's because they've spent so much time in silence that they've learned to listen, not to words, but to energy, tone, and truth. They can sense authenticity and detect deception in seconds because solitude has trained their senses to pick up the smallest details others overlook. This habit of observation becomes their armor. They watch how people move, how they speak, how they treat others when no one is watching. They learn that kindness isn't in words, it's in consistency. They begin to understand how manipulation hides behind charm, how dishonesty disguises itself as flattery, how insecurity wears the mask of confidence. This insight doesn't make them bitter, it makes them wise. While others are quick to trust or to please, they choose to pause. They've been burned before, and those burns have become lessons. Every betrayal sharpened their perception. Every disappointment trained them to see beyond appearance. When you've walked alone long enough, you stop seeing the world at face value. You start recognizing patterns. How people behave when they need something, how they disappear when you need them, how loyalty often exists only when it's convenient. This awareness isn't cold, it's protective. It helps them navigate life with discernment. They don't hate people, they just understand them too well. They don't expect much, and that's what keeps them at peace. Expectations are replaced by understanding, and resentment is replaced by distance. Being an observer also changes how they communicate. They speak less, but mean more. They've learned that most conversations are filled with noise, words spoken not to connect, but to impress. They've learned the value of silence. When they talk, it's intentional. When they listen, it's complete. They read between lines, hear what isn't said, and often understand emotions that others can't even name. This ability makes them both mysterious and intimidating because you can't lie to someone who's mastered silence. They can feel the energy behind your words. They don't need explanations. They already know. This heightened awareness also turns inward. They don't just study others, they study themselves. They notice how their emotions shift, how their body reacts to certain people, how peace leaves or enters depending on who they're around. This internal observation becomes a form of emotional hygiene. They learn to walk away from anything that disturbs their balance. They no longer chase connections that cost them their peace, because they've realized peace is the highest form of wealth. People who have no friends are often misunderstood as cold or detached, but the truth is, they've simply become more selective. They've learned that not everyone deserves to know their story. They understand that trust is sacred, and giving it to the wrong person can destroy your spirit. So they protect their energy. They'd rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by lies. Over time, this quiet observation transforms into wisdom. They begin to understand human nature deeply, the insecurities, the fears, the hunger for validation that drives people's actions. Instead of judging, they start to empathize. They realize everyone's fighting battles, most of them hidden. This empathy makes them gentle, but not naive. They care, but with boundaries. They forgive, but they don't forget. In a noisy world full of people desperate to be seen, they find power in being unseen. They move quietly, think deeply, and live consciously. Observation gives them emotional independence. They no longer need approval to feel confident or company to feel complete. Their solitude has trained them to read life like a book, one page at a time, with eyes that see what others ignore. And that vision, that calm, grounded awareness is what sets them apart. People who live without friends form an intimate bond with silence, a bond that changes everything about how they think, feel, and move through life. Most people fear silence. They drown it with music, endless scrolling, constant talking, anything to avoid facing themselves. But those who have no friends don't have that escape. They sit in it, they listen to it, and eventually they learn that silence is not emptiness. It's wisdom in its purest form. In that stillness, they begin to hear the voice that matters most, their own. It's faint at first, buried under years of noise and conditioning, but with time, it grows clearer, stronger, more honest. It becomes their compass. That inner voice doesn't flatter or deceive. It doesn't tell them what they want to hear. It tells them what they need to hear. It reminds them of who they are when the world forgets and who they must become when life tests them. In solitude, they learn to trust that voice more than the opinions of others. They realize how often people around them live by noise, the expectations of society, the approval of friends, the fear of judgment. But when you walk alone, you start seeing how shallow that chase really is. You stop needing external applause, because your peace no longer depends on anyone's validation. People who have no friends begin to understand that silence has layers. There's the silence of loneliness, heavy and cold. Then there's the silence of healing, gentle, reflective, and liberating. In the beginning, solitude feels like punishment. The mind rebels, the heart aches. Every quiet night feels longer than the one before. But slowly, the silence softens. It stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. It teaches patience, control, and emotional discipline. You start realizing that not every emptiness needs to be filled. Not every quiet moment needs to be interrupted. You learn to let your emotions pass like waves without drowning in them. When you stop fearing silence, you begin to master it. It becomes your meditation, your recovery, your weapon. It gives you the ability to pause before reacting, to think before speaking, and to move with intention. People who live in noise act on impulse. People who live in silence act with purpose. The quiet teaches them emotional maturity, the ability to stay calm when others lose control, to stay grounded when life throws chaos their way. Their peace becomes unshakable because it's not built on people or places, it's built on stillness. The world misunderstands silence. It confuses it with weakness, shyness, or indifference. But silence is power. It's the energy that holds thoughts before they become words, the strength that holds emotions before they become reactions. People who have no friends often wield this power effortlessly. They don't argue to prove their worth, they let silence speak for them. They don't chase to be seen, their calm presence demands attention. They've learned that silence can heal wounds that words only deepen. This deep connection with silence also awakens creativity. When the mind is free from noise, it begins to create. New ideas, new perspectives, and deep realizations rise to the surface. Solitude turns into a laboratory for the soul. People start journaling, reflecting, meditating, building dreams quietly while the world rushes by. The same silence that once felt suffocating becomes their sanctuary. Most people think peace comes from company, but those who've lived in solitude know peace comes from clarity. When you sit long enough in silence, you begin to separate what truly matters from what doesn't. You stop chasing approval, drama, and validation. You start craving simplicity. Real conversations, honest emotions, meaningful work. Silence becomes the foundation for authenticity. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. Silence teaches you how to love yourself. When no one is around to affirm your worth, you start giving that affirmation to yourself. You look in the mirror and see not someone abandoned, but someone awakening. Someone who no longer needs the world's noise to feel alive. Because once you've made peace with silence, you carry a calmness that no chaos can disturb. And that calmness, that unshakable stillness, is what turns solitude into strength. When you live without a circle of friends for long enough, something shifts deep within you. You stop living for the crowd. You begin to see how much of your old life was shaped by other people's expectations, opinions, and judgments. You start noticing how much energy you once spent trying to be understood, accepted, or liked. And when that noise fades, what's left is something purer: focus. People who walk alone eventually reach a point where their direction becomes clear. They're no longer pulled by the gravity of others' opinions. They're guided by the force of their own purpose. It's a quiet but powerful transformation. Without the constant chatter of friends and social obligations, you start hearing the rhythm of your own ambition. You begin to see what really matters, not what's trending, not what earns praise, but what actually fulfills you. That's when you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You wake up not to impress, but to progress. Your goals become sharper because there's no one left to distract you. Your focus deepens because solitude strips away the unnecessary. You realize how much time people waste explaining themselves to those who will never truly get them. And you stop doing that. You no longer seek to be understood, you seek to build. When you live without social validation, you develop a level of mental independence that most never experience. You learn to keep moving forward without being seen, without being celebrated. You build in silence, you grind in the shadows. You don't need people to cheer you on because you've learned that success that needs validation is just another form of dependence. You work not for attention, but for evolution. Each quiet step forward becomes a statement, proof that you don't need a crowd to climb. This kind of solitude also builds discipline. When you have no one to lean on, no one to push you, you learn to push yourself. You learn that self-motivation is the purest form of strength. People who have no friends don't have accountability partners reminding them to stay on track. They become their own. They talk themselves out of doubt, pick themselves up after failure, and keep going when no one's watching. That's why solitude produces the kind of determination that can't be shaken. The world often underestimates people who walk alone because it can't see the battles they fight every day just to keep moving. Over time, this mindset becomes a lifestyle. You stop explaining your silence. You stop apologizing for your distance. You stop justifying why you don't fit in, because you realize fitting in was never the goal. Growth was, peace was, freedom was. The same isolation that once made you question your worth now becomes the reason you rise above mediocrity. You're no longer distracted by meaningless conversations or drained by superficial relationships. You pour your energy into building something lasting: skills, dreams, wisdom, resilience. People who live without friends often find themselves drawn toward purpose. They start seeing life as a mission rather than a social performance. They measure success not by how many people like them, but by how many challenges they've overcome. Their silence becomes strategy, their distance becomes discipline, and their solitude becomes strength. There's a kind of freedom that only comes when you stop needing to be seen. It's the freedom of walking your own path, even if no one else understands it. You begin to realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you. Not because they're bad, but because your direction is different. You don't look for belonging anymore, you look for becoming. You stop chasing attention and start chasing purpose. This shift creates a rare type of person, someone unstoppable. Because once you've learned to focus in solitude, you no longer crumble under pressure. You no longer need motivation from others to keep going. You've built it within. You've learned that strength isn't loud, it's silent. It's the quiet persistence of a soul that refuses to quit. And that's the secret psychology of those who have no friends. They don't need the crowd's noise to find their way. They walk alone, but they walk with direction. They may not have company, but they have clarity. And that clarity is what turns their solitude into power. There comes a moment when people who have walked through long seasons of solitude begin to understand one of life's deepest truths: that peace isn't found in company, it's found in clarity. After all the pain, the isolation, and the silent nights of reflection, they reach a level of self-awareness that changes everything. They stop chasing friendships that drain their energy. They stop seeking validation from those who never truly saw them. And they begin to live from a place of inner calm that no one can disturb. What once felt like loneliness transforms into liberation. They realize that being alone isn't the same as being incomplete. It's being whole on your own terms. When you live without friends, you learn something most people never do: how to be comfortable in your own presence. You stop measuring your worth by how many people text you, invite you, or remember your name. You realize that the opinions of others don't define you. They only reflect where those people are in their own journey. That realization is powerful. It allows you to move differently, to breathe easier, to make choices that align with your truth instead of someone else's expectations. You start valuing your peace more than popularity, your growth more than approval, and your truth more than belonging. And that's where clarity becomes your compass. You see through the illusions that once trapped you. The illusion that happiness depends on company, that success depends on recognition, that love depends on validation. You begin to understand that none of those things were ever real. True strength comes when you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You stop competing, stop comparing, stop performing. The quiet becomes enough. You find joy in small things, in your work, your passions, your self-improvement. Life simplifies, but it becomes richer. People who have no friends often reach a level of mental freedom that those surrounded by crowds may never know. They are no longer pulled by the tides of gossip, drama, or approval. They move with purpose, guided by their own understanding of what matters. They choose who to let in, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. They've learned that energy is precious, that peace is sacred, and that not everyone deserves access to it. This kind of selective solitude doesn't make them cold, it makes them peaceful. They no longer carry the weight of needing to be liked. They've traded that for for the lightness of simply being real. And there's also an emotional maturity that blossoms in this stage. People who have lived without friends learn to navigate their emotions alone, to comfort themselves when they're hurting, to celebrate themselves when they succeed, and to guide themselves when they're lost. They become both the healer and the warrior of their own soul. They no longer depend on others to lift them up because they've already learned how to rise from rock bottom with no hand to pull them. That self-reliance breeds quiet confidence, not arrogance, but an inner knowing that no matter what happens, they'll be okay. And perhaps the most profound thing is this. Once they've mastered solitude, they stop fearing loss. They stop being desperate to hold on to people who were never meant to stay. They love freely, but they don't cling. They give without expectation, walk away without hatred, and rebuild without bitterness. That kind of freedom is rare. It's the kind that only comes from walking through deep loneliness and turning it into wisdom. In the end, people who have no friends are not broken. They're evolved. They've discovered a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a strength that doesn't need witnesses, and a clarity that no crowd can offer. They may walk alone, but their path is guided by truth. And when you've built that kind of inner foundation, no one can ever take it from you. Because the moment you learn to be complete without company, you've already won the hardest battle of all. The one within yourself.